awesome, magical. These movie special effects are part of a whole revolution in sight and sound entertainment. Today's advancements in technology are propelling filmmakers, musicians, visual and sound artists of all kinds into new realms of expression and expanding the very nature of entertainment itself. But how did it all begin? The motion picture was one of the earliest forms of entertainment technology. In the beginning, audiences were awed and amazed simply to watch motion recreated from real life. Incredible as it seems today, this film of the Lyon Express arriving at the station caused some patrons to shriek, duck under their seats, and even to faint. But as the novelty of watching scenes from everyday reality began to wear off, early movie makers turned to new subjects. Some began to reproduce skits and comedies in the tradition of burlesque theater. Others began experimenting with the camera to create some of the first movie magic. By stopping the camera and restarting it after the scene had been changed, these pioneers were able to create a series of crazy transformations that amazed audiences everywhere. In this scene, the photographer was carefully replaced by a dummy, creating a spectacle which must have shocked the unsuspecting audiences of the day. Early filmmakers also used the device of double exposure, rewinding the film in the camera to photograph a new image onto the original scene. These early camera tricks laid the foundation for what was to become the art of special effects. People have always hungered for the marvelous, the wonderful, the amazing. Before the invention of movies, it was the magician who catered to this universal desire. So it was no accident that the filmmaker known as the father of movie special effects was a French magician, Georges Melies. Melies is most famous for his surrealistic film, A Trip to the Moon. Completed in 1902, it was the first science fiction movie ever made. Melies, seen here as the first man on the moon, combined elaborate theatrical effects with animation and special optical tricks. He produced some 4,000 films in all, and in the process discovered many techniques that are still in use today. Melies' inventive spirit inspired filmmakers around the world, triggering a quest for ways to create better and more realistic special effects. This quest was to lead some 3 decades later to the creation of King Kong, one of the most famous and beloved of all the creatures ever brought to life by special effects. Kong certainly illustrates the textbook definition of a special effect, a technique or device used to produce an illusion of reality in a situation where it is not possible, economic, or safe to use the real thing. When King Kong first appeared on the screen in 1933, many viewers believed he was a real, living creature. To achieve this astonishing realism, the makers of King Kong perfected and combined many different techniques. Here, Kong is a model about 18 inches high, and the captured heroine is nothing more than a tiny doll. Much of the forest and the cave in these miniature sets is depicted by matte paintings, realistic scenes often painted on glass to provide both the foreground and background of a set. In this scene, a previously photographed image of the actress is projected from the rear onto a portion of the miniature set.
It's like a horrible dream.
The same technique is used here to integrate a film of the miniature Kong model into the window area of a life-sized set.
I'm going to stay right here with you. Anyhow, you know...
Live action, miniature sets, and matte paintings, combined with large-scale mechanical props like this giant hand, all work together in King Kong to create a compelling sense of reality. It's a little surprising to realize that the most exciting space fantasies of today still use the special effects methods of King Kong. In this memorable scene from The Empire Strikes Back, the Imperial walkers are models about a foot high. Like King Kong, they are painstakingly animated frame by frame.
All right, coming in.
At New World Pictures in Los Angeles, filmmakers today use the same method to bring models to life. This technique is called stop-frame animation. The models have joints which allow them to be moved into different positions. Once placed in the set, the model is carefully manipulated into just the right stance. The camera is lined up to photograph the scene, with the model temporarily frozen in one position. A single frame of film is exposed. Leaving the camera in precisely the same position, the model is then moved again a fraction of an inch, and another single frame is photographed. This process is repeated hundreds of times. If the movements are made carefully, the model in the finished film will seem to move as if it were alive.
Some people call it special makeup effects. Some people call it prosthetics. I don't know what to call it. It's creating an organic structure that moves. This little guy is a good example of what cable control can do. These are all bicycle cables. They're attached to a fiberglass armature, a skeletal structure inside. There are little affixed mechanisms to the foam rubber casting, and it moves when articulated with cables. I'm asked to create a living, breathing entity, something that looks organic, but is articulated in a way left up to my own discretion. And lately that's been cable control, puppets, muppets, masks, just about anything you can think of. For example, in the film Android, I was asked to create a facsimile of Klaus Kinski's head.
But the code specifically states...
Don't tell me about the
To
code.
create the mechanical Klaus Kinski head, first we had to start with a direct casting of Klaus Kinski's face. That is, alginate over his face to create a solid dental stone version of him. Based on this, we create a silicone mold. We press clay into the mold, create a Kinski sculpture. Based on that sculpture, we create this mold. From here, we create a core. From the core, we create a fiberglass skull. It's cut, hinged, and mechanized. By mechanized, I mean we put cables everywhere muscles would go. We put the mold together, we create a foam rubber casting, which is about a ½ inch to ¼ of an inch thick all around. We put it all together, and you have a living, breathing Klaus Kinski head. A little bit worse for wear, but he has a few movements left in him. Looks a little upset. Max 404. He has a little plate in the back of his head. When they remove his hair, and his little panel opens up, there's little flashing lights in there where his assassin circuit is. I'm just asked to create things that don't normally exist, but somehow have to for a film.
Another very important element of producing successful special effects is the art of creating believable miniature models. A lot of ingenuity went into the building of the model spaceships and space station for the film Android.
Our assignment was to create a space station and a police ship which would be part of a fleet of police cruisers that were out in this sector of outer space. So our model builder worked with the director and came up with some designs that we knew that we could do a good job on within the parameters of the rather strict budget. So basically one of our main techniques of model building is to take a basic structure. The basic structure in this case is a watch display case. and then use model kits that you can buy in the store to add detail. We might use pieces from battleship models or gun models, such as a rifle barrel might look good as part of the engine of a spaceship, or a piece from a battleship might look good as a storage tank for a space station. And it's just using shapes and using objects in a creative way and using your imagination.
Once the miniatures are built, they still must be photographed in movement and combined with the rest of the special effects elements. Let's take a look now at how these models were integrated into this spectacular space scene, created by Midland Production Corporation at their state-of-the-art studio in Richmond, California. Once again, the spaceship is a model, constructed of hundreds of parts from various model kits as well as specially formed pieces. The movement of the model and the motion picture camera are guided and tracked along 12 independent axes by a computer. Each of up to 20 elements of a complex scene has to be filmed separately. One of the basic principles of special effects is that images can be combined to move together even though they were filmed separately. The first step is to film the spaceship against a black background. This camera movement is memorized by the computer, making it possible to repeat this exact shot as many times as necessary. This time, the movement is repeated in a darkened set with flaring lights, simulating the powerful blast of the rocket engines. These flares will appear in the exact location of the engines photographed in the first shot. To combine this shot with a background image, it's also necessary to film the ship in silhouette. This will produce a strip of film that will allow light to pass through the scene everywhere except for the precise location of the spaceship. Once again, the process is repeated, this time greatly overexposing the rocket ship to create a negative image. The set equipment, still visible, will be blocked out later. After the spaceship has been filmed, the computer motion control unit is reprogrammed to film a new shot. This time, the camera is filming the background of the scene, a large model of a planet's surface. As before, the film camera is tracked through a series of complicated, predetermined moves that can be duplicated as many times as necessary. The camera here is shooting from the audience's point of view as the rocket heads toward its explosive collision with the space colony base established in one of the craters of the planet. Finally, each of these separate film elements is loaded into the optical printer, where it is combined to create the finished effect.
It begins with a light source and two projectors in which we put previously exposed pieces of film, a camera, and all controlled by a computer. In a shot like 47, where the ship crashes into the base, we would put in this projector a piece of film of the base and a mat of the ship in order to not print the base where there would be ship in the final composite. That would be printed onto this roll of film, the film backed up to frame 0, these taken out, the ship put in and carefully lined up with its mat, and then printed into that hole that was left in that space in the film. And the final result is a composite and a piece of film that will later be integrated into a finished film.
Optical printing, combined with modern computerized motion control cameras, have made possible an incredible precision in special effects photography. In today's movie adventures, special effects artists sometimes combine dozens of separate elements to produce the desired effect. The job of putting together all these images requires patient and painstaking work. But the results are often amazing to behold.
Quick, jam their Conway. Center switch.
Much of the incredible movement and energy of these scenes was made possible by a remarkable device called a Steadicam. This is the Steadicam. Its carefully balanced system of pulleys, springs, and joints insulate the camera from the movement of the camera operator. This unique design allows the camera person to obtain a smooth-flowing, continuous shot over virtually any type of terrain. Imagine your task is to follow these children at play as they run up the stairs of this park. This is what an ordinary handheld shot would look like. The jerky motion, inevitable even in the hands of the most expert operator, draws attention to the camera. On the Steadicam, however, this spring-loaded arm acts as a shock absorber. The perfectly balanced camera mount maintains its stability while the operator monitors the scene on a small video screen. With some 45 pounds of equipment strapped to his torso, this cameraman is having no easy time moving smoothly up the steps. Let's take a look at the shot, however, and see just how forgiving the Steadicam can be. To create a sense of speed, a scene can be photographed in fast motion, simply by slowing down the rate at which the film advances in the camera. The illusion is one of flying along at high speed. In Return of the Jedi, these beautifully controlled background shots were filmed by Garrett, the inventor of the Steadicam.